All right, horseshoe sign behind me, kind of blurry. The camera's focusing on me, as it should. Part 2, poker dealer pet peeves, part 2. Let's kick it off with, this is an interesting one. So I have my own anecdote about this from last summer, but when, okay, it's going to have to be a little math over here. I actually don't remember if I did the math vertically or horizontally. Let me think about this. I think it was vertical, so there. The number should be right there. When there's a side pot and this dealer does it the like slightly slower but much less error-prone way, and players yell at him on how to do it the faster way. So in this example, say there's a bet of 100, someone's all in for less, player 2 is all in for $42, and player 3 calls the 100. Okay, $42 from each player needs to go into the main pot, the rest needs to go into the side. So one way you could do it is you could think, okay, the bet's 100, the small all-in is 42. So player 1 needs to get $58 into the side pot. Player 3 also $58 into the side pot. 100 minus 42. 58 plus 58 is 116. So however you could do it, get 116 off to the side, everything else scoop up into the main. The way that's much less error prone, and yeah, that way is faster, although I've seen people make $5, $10 mistakes on that. It happens almost daily. The other way to do it, even if you need to make change, okay, the all-in player 42, bring that into the middle. Player 1, even if he puts $100 out there with $25 chips, take one of those $5 chips, make change, substitute it for 5 $1 chips. Now you could pull exactly 42 in, and you can leave exactly 58 out there. For player 3, if he put the 100 in the exact same way, same thing. Take a $5 chip, replace it with 5 ones, you can pull in exactly 42, leaving exactly 58. You don't even have to count the 58s. If you counted the 100 and you made the change, you don't even need to count the 58. You've brought in 42 from everyone exactly, put all the rest on the side. When you're doing that, sometimes some players yell at you, 116 on the side. They get really mad that you're spending like 4 extra seconds to make sure you do it right. There was a time last year in Orleans, I was dealing an Omaha 8 tournament, and my first hand at the table had a main pot and I think 2 side pots, and this guy in the 8-seat or the 9-seat, the guy right next to me on my right, just kept telling me, like numbers and side pot 1, side pot 2. He just kept saying numbers over and over again. I wasn't lost, I didn't pause, I wasn't nervous, I just didn't feel like doing the math, so I was making change and doing it the way that doesn't require as much math. I was doing everything correctly, and then even though I heard everything he said, I thought it would annoy him more if I acted like I didn't. So when I was done getting all the pots right, I turned and said, "Oh, were you asking me something? I was getting the pots right." And he said, I was telling you a faster way to do it. It's all right." But yeah, that could be annoying. I have no problem with dealers who do it the first way. It takes a few more seconds, but it's much less likely that there's an error. So first dealer in this video, pet peeves part 2, said that. Second in this video, and this is the only one I will not leave anonymous because it's me. The thing that annoys me most is when people around the curves of the table, the 2-seat, the 3-seat, if you're 8-handed, the 6 and the 7, if you're 9-handed, the 7 and the 8, people who do anything that makes me reach a lot more than I'm capable of. Folding cards and moving them like an inch in front of where they would keep them if they were playing the hand, putting out bets, and the chips barely make it in front of their chip stack. Some people also, it doesn't happen as much, but it happens sometimes. So say I'm moving the button from like say it's an 8-handed table, I'm moving the button from the 5 to the 6. Well, the 5 is almost directly across from me. So I'm moving the button from an easy position, like off to the side a little, in front of the 6-seat. I'll push it as far as I can, such that I can still reach it. Because when this next hand is over, I'm gonna have to grab it again and move it to the 7-seat. Some people, after I do that, every single time, they'll drag the button as close to their chips as possible, and now it's out of my reach, and now I'm gonna have to ask them for help or actually like get out of my chair. the next hand to actually move the button. Like, I'm putting the button where I'm putting it for a very specific reason. I would love it if no one ever touched it, but that doesn't happen. So there, that was mine. The seats that are hard to reach, I guess if you have really long arms, this might not ever matter to you. My arms aren't all that long. Even though when my mom can't reach something, she asks me to grab it. I guess between the two of us, I'm the much taller one, but it's not like I'm Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or anything, so I have some trouble reaching things to those seats on the outside of the table. Number 3 is an interesting one, and I'm going to get a little more specific on behalf of this dealer. This dealer said when people don't hear any announcements, the dealer announces the straddle, and then people have no idea there is a straddle, so they claim. The dealer announces bet or raise, including an amount perhaps, and then people ask, how much is it? Okay, I could see that. I will say, you see a lot of times some agitation when people don't hear the straddle announcement. Someone straddles, dealer announces it, usually with the number, and inevitably there is someone who limps for the big blind amount. In a 1-3 game, limps for 3, even though the straddle is 6. And then they pretty quickly, not all the time, but plenty of the time, like, have an attitude with the dealer. Say, oh, well, you're supposed to announce it. And usually the dealer says, I did announce it. So that happens a lot. There was actually once at Bally's, this guy, you probably call it Horseshoe, this guy wouldn't let it go in Vegas. This was like 1 or 2 years ago. The dealer, who's a great dealer, occasionally says something like sarcastic, but great at dealing, very, very good with customer service. There was a straddle, and he announced it. I was listening. I heard him announce the straddle. A guy calls 3, and the dealer says, well, it's 6, there's a straddle. And this guy got mad very quickly. He said, oh, well, you're supposed to announce it, so announce it from now on. And he said, I will from now on, but I also did this hand. He goes, no, you didn't announce it. First of all, this guy was in a conversation with me. I could hear other things besides this guy's voice, so I was talking to him. I also heard that the dealer announced the straddle, and I guess he couldn't focus on more than one thing at a time, so he didn't hear the straddle. And no matter how many times the dealer said he did announce it, and I said, yeah, I mean, we were talking, but I heard him announce the straddle also. Like, he announced it. The guy just kept getting madder and madder. And I have no idea what for. Like, we were not making it up. It's also not that big of a deal. If the guy limped for the 3, he was probably limping for the 6. Like, it's really not changing much at this point. But the guy just kept getting madder and madder. That happens a lot. People don't hear the straddle announcement, and that causes some problems. Although from the dealer's perspective, I could understand, you know, if you say, like, bet, and then the next person to act says, well, it checks to me. If that's happening all night, that could be pretty annoying too. And the last two, similar. One dealer said anything that slows the game down, and another dealer said players who constantly need to be reminded it's their turn to act. And yeah, as a player, same thing. That annoys me just because we're wasting time. I'm actually very, very lenient with people, for one, paying attention. Sometimes you get newer people new to poker, who are paying attention. They just like want to be sure. They really don't want to make a mistake and act out a turn. So even though they're pretty confident it's their turn, they still wait for the dealer to be explicit about it. It's on you. I have no problem with that. And usually if they're paying attention that much and they care that much about not like messing things up, they pick it up pretty quickly. There was a time, man, this dealer should have been fired on the spot. He was a piece of garbage. One of the 4, is it still 4? One of my first videos ever was 4 dealers I never tip anymore. Not that I see these people, not all of them are even in Vegas. But there was a guy at MGM National Harbor. This was 2018. And a guy new to poker, he was at the table. He wasn't on his phone. He wasn't watching TV. His friends weren't standing behind him. He didn't know all the rules, but he was trying his best. He was paying attention to the game. He just was not always 100% sure action was on him, even if it was. So there was a hand where there was a bet, and he wasn't 100% sure it was on him. But like, he knew what he wanted to do, and he was looking at, you know, the middle of the table, and he wasn't distracted. And eventually he kind of looks up at the dealer and asks, is it on me? And the dealer said, my kids are literally starving right now waiting for you to act on this hand. Don't know why that guy goes into customer service when he's just a massive piece of garbage, and he must know he's awful at customer service. Also, fortunate for him that a floor wasn't nearby when he said that. I can't imagine a boss hearing that and that not being the end of the guy's tenure at MGM National Harbor, but that guy was trash and instantly stopped tipping him for life. Not that I ever saw him again after that summer. But yeah, if people are trying, I have no problem with it. It's the people who are just like watching movies on their phones, watching TV. They came to the poker room and sat at the poker table even though their back is always to the table so they could see that TV and watch the hockey game. Things like that are pretty annoying to players and dealers also. So there it is, a wrap on part 2. I am going to leave the Horseshoe Council Bluffs parking lot and enter the building. And yeah, I'll ask, we're in tons of dealers that I have phone numbers for or that are nearby here in the Omaha Council Bluffs area. When I go to Vegas, I'll see way more current, former dealers, dealers turned floor people. I have so many more people to poll, so expect more installments of this series. And remember, rice is a spoon food.